Yeah, this is such an amazing message. Everything is it. There's nowhere where it's not. We can imagine there's somewhere where it's not and then go try and look for it. But how do you look for everything? All is this means everything. You can't find everything. You can't lose everything. So everything can even include a feeling of separation. Now that's also included. So that if there's a feeling of separation there, it's just not yours. Nobody owns it. Nobody owns up the feeling of separation. Is not owned by anyone. Nothing is owned by anyone. It never was. Yeah, the one that thought they were the owner doesn't exist. This is an open meeting. Everybody's invited to participate. So if you have a comment or question, please unmute and jump in.
I have a question and I would like to offer a projected answer. And the question is to you, Michael. As you were speaking, and Don may be able to relate to this question as it has come up before. As you were speaking, the question arose, how does this information come to you? How do you know this? And the projected answer, I just thought, well, what would he say? And the projected answer would be, it doesn't come to anyone.
Exactly. It's the same assumption that I'm this body or I'm in the body. Those are the two. Either I am the body or I have a sense that I'm located within the body. Somebody asked a good question. Oh yeah, Charles said, if I'm not in my body, where do I live?
Where's the I? Where's the me? Where's the self?
Yeah, all those things seem to be here. But when actually looked for right now, can you find a me anywhere in this moment?
No, I haven't heard Charles ask you that, but I imagine Nkosi's answer would be nowhere.
I mean, the beauty of it is you can look now. You can look for yourself. You can see, is there a me here? And you just can't get around the fact that you can't find one.
I think that brings up a good question. Just like who could look?
Bingo.
I find that kind of incredible with this message. Just whenever I get around it, it's like that sense of, myself with all of my history and future dreams and feeling like I'm perceiving things, like when it's heard that could just be a dream or that's not happening, it's like terrifying, but incredible to hear that. It's like it seems like it speaks to something like a tuning fork, kind of like something's in key there where it's like it starts to feel kind of dreamlike, but not through like an understanding. I guess because I went through a phase of like thinking that this could be turned into something conceptual, but then all you get out of that is just more concept and more concept and more concept. And I think I was listening to an old recording. I think Peter might have said something like, this can't be understood in that way. And that kind of clarified something. It was like the only how that you understand a concept is with other concepts. If something becomes clear conceptually, it's through concepts that clarity is there. So it's just the loop, just looping endlessly with understanding and seeing it clearly. And it's like, it can't be done that way. If all knowledge is like assumption to begin with, that like we assume that these words have meaning or point to anything other than just sound coming out. It's like as soon as you say anything, it's just a rabbit hole of concept and story, and that's incredible.
All the beautiful meaninglessness of words.
Yeah, there's only ever everything is that it's quite startling when you realize that there's only ever been everything. I mean, you could use everything for a synonym for wholeness. So there's always wholeness. There's always everything. A bad mood, a good mood, being pissed, being joyous, having a profound insight, all of it. So everything means everything, but the me hears it as, well, Dan and I were talking about this on the phone. The me brings in the yeah, but. The me is the but.
Yeah, I've been listening. I listened to a speaker, Ganga Myra. I don't know if anybody knows her. She's what struck me when she spoke was she said, "Don't touch the tortured mind, because you'll find there'll be no answers. When you touch the tortured mind, there's no answers. So don't touch it."
And you might get burned.
True.
Yeah, I think it's as David was just saying, concepts don't bring any clarity. They don't bring an answer. They just bring more concepts, which is more story. They tell a story. And it keeps going on and on. And there's a kind of meaning to that. If you say the story has meaning, it has meaning as a story. But that meaning is meaningless in the sense, and there's never, concepts can't bring clarity, because in order to get clarity, you would have to be starting from something that's unclear. And there just isn't anything unclear. This is not unclear. And there isn't any clarity that could happen to this, whatever it is, that would bring something called clarity. No, the clarity, this is what is. It's already clear in that sense, if you want to put a word on it, like clear. But it's not something that's missing clarity. That's the me illusion, is that there's some clarity missing here and I need to get it. So I'm going to get more concepts or more experience or more whatever, more story. Yeah.
And it's okay if you touch the tortured mind. You're not really touching it. It's not really there. And everything just is like Michael opened saying, it's everything. It's everything. It's everything. It doesn't matter. You can't go anywhere. There is no one to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly, Zoe. You can't get around everything.
There is seeing things like a juggler, where you're balancing it, a seeing, a seer, and the seen. Or you could say the knowing, the knower, or the known, or the So when here speaking, there is seeing, and there is the seer. The seer and the seen is the identity, what was talked upon as touching the separation, the wound or conflict or suffering. And then there resides still the suffering, the object, the subject of that suffering in the seeing, the perceiving, which is everything. The seeing, the seen, and the seer are all that. So here, holding on to the synergy, the symphony, if you like, of those three dimensions, apparent dimensions. Of course, they're not apparent dimensions. They're simply what's arising and seen for purposes of this conversation. As they become more discerned, discriminated, they again arise and then recede in emptiness to that Sat Chit Ananda, that being, consciousness, bliss, or that awe of being. I suspect that Adidas Samraj had something like that in mind, although he professed not to have a mind. He said to his group, why are you not ecstatic? Why are you not ecstatic? Don't you see? Essentially, he sees things as Nikosi reports things. It just is. The suffering, the seeing, the feeling, the experiencing is all that. Why aren't you ecstatic? What's wrong with me? I'm not ecstatic. Because I've forgotten that what is veiling the ecstasy, that awe of being, is the self, the identity, the me.
Right. So you could also ask the question, well, why are you not noticing that you are ecstatic?
I do.
That there only is ecstatic is another way of saying it. And Adida, I'm a little familiar with the way he talked. He might say it that way too. You know, why are you not remembering, or why are you not noticing, or whatever?
Because why are there separate entities? Why do we get lost? Why, oh why? Yeah, it just simply that is. And that, of course, that getting lost, that not being ecstatic, and that woe is me and suffering, that too is it. Until that's simply the seeing, the perceiving, then you forget and you say, oh, I am suffering, or I'm not ecstatic. But here, there's more and more. It's all that awe of being, that ecstatic delight in just seeing. I don't know. I've often watched movies, and I see them a second or third time, of course, but I see it again. I find that there are tears flowing, there's laughter occurring, where before it was just a movie, just following it along. But there's more of a sense of that ecstasy that you're mentioning, the end perhaps, but there's a more sense of immediacy. I can be with my kids, and there's just a pure delight. And then I might try to explain something to some of them, and they look at me like I just fell off the wall, and the ecstasy dissipates.
So the concepts aren't really explaining anything. As David did say at the beginning, A concept is only going to take you to another concept. A story can only take you to another story.
But still, why are you or why am I not ecstatic? So what's the
Well,
story there?
I wonder, Michael, whether being ecstatic is such an important thing. This contains much more than being ecstatic. It's not limited to being ecstatic, and certainly not limited to asking why can't I like maintain this state of ecstasy that I would like to be in 24/7. That may be a concept that perpetuates the searching.
If I'm using why am I not ecstatic, then I'm involved in a mantra, and guilty is charged, Peter. Then that's absolutely right. It's simply a pointer. It's like
Or we could say that there may be an appearance of not being ecstatic, or a story of someone who isn't ecstatic maybe showing up. But who is that story for? Who is that one who's not ecstatic?
well, I don't want to reduce it to this person or that person as being ecstatic or not. It doesn't matter. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're ecstatic, clap your hands. If you're in awe of being, clap your hands. If you're in pure delight, clap your hands. If you're orgiastic, clap your hand. I mean, I don't mean to leave it there, but the words are the coin of the realm, the lingua franca. But at the point that they're pointing to it, they're the pointers, not the phenomena, not the activity of that state that we feel when Nikosi speaks, and that the power of, call it loving kindness or care or compassion or sheer joy. This is call it, this may be a man or this may not be a man, who cares? But there's a sheer delight in expressing the truth that's exploding within that expression of phenomenon.
Michael, I got a new slogan. If you're happy and you don't know it, clap your hands.
Well, if you're happy and you don't know it, you wouldn't understand the command. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
It's funny.
Everything. It's everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe.
Everything. It's fucking everything. It's the anger, it's the sadness, it's the whatever shows up in the moment. It's not, like Peter brilliantly said, it's not limited to being ecstatic. And I love how Tim Kliss says it's such bullshit, you know, that we've been fed that, oh, you know, enlightenment is all about happiness. That's just crammed down our throats. And it's everything.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, it's so funny to watch the mind complicate everything. It's just everything is just everything, guys. You can spin a story, it's all fine because that's this too. That's everything. You can't, that's the thing, you can't fucking get around everything. There's not more everything. There's not less everything. There's just fucking everything.
And I noticed that, I noticed when some of you speak, Zoe, Michael, Peter, Dan, David, I feel there's a real aliveness, and I find myself really being attentive. And I don't feel that way with you, Michael. I'm just saying, when you start talking about what so-and-so said, what Nisargadatta said, and what these different people say, it just feels really dead to me. It's so what? Or maybe that's a concept, but I don't feel the same aliveness. Just saying and reporting from my experience.
Well, who feels the aliveness and who feels the deadness?
I think it's interesting if we have an idea of what ecstasy is, then that becomes some sort of goal, or it's an imaginary goal, right? Because then it's, well, this isn't ecstasy. Because if it's pain, that's not ecstasy. But like right there is the duality. It's like drawing separation and lines between where ecstasy begins and ends. But what if this is ecstasy? What if it is the forgetting? What if it is the not knowing? And that's like what Dan was saying about clarity, I thought was cool too. It's like, to get that this is everything, you'd have to know everything. And everything isn't like a lot of things and all the things you can think of. It includes that. But if everything is a word for infinite, then of course it's unapproachable. It includes the approach, but it's an imaginary goal. And like when that seems to sink in, that like you can't get everything, there just is everything,
Yeah,
then that seeking can seem to just kind of,
that's it.
it's just kind of the wheels fall off the car. You're like, well,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
you've been
saying,
trying so hard. Like you've all the books, all the videos, all the, whatever, killing yourself for that golden secret, the one bit of insight that's going to do it, that's going to explain everything. And that's such bullshit. There's nothing like that. There's just what's happening. That's it.
I'm sorry, I used the word ecstasy.
Mhm.
I'll have
well,
another,
it could be any word. I mean, it could
another look at the thesaurus and find something else. Yeah.
It's not in the words, Michael. It's not about
course,
it's
course
not
not.
about the words.
Of course not. Of course not. And it's not being said that they are. but it's interesting how the words charge up people and charge us all, I suppose. But
I think in this case, Michael,
give me, I know not what I'm saying.
well, in this case, I think it was a good example, because there's a huge myth out there that there is enlightenment as a state, and that we want to achieve enlightenment through practice and through procedures and protocols, and I think it's a huge myth. And I think a lot of the saints that are being quoted are totally consistent within that myth.
Is it expression be as little children again? Have you ever watched children communicate and be joyful, and they have no clue of the words or the meaning, but there is perfect delight. That's the point of.
I think one of the, and at the risk of, well, one of the signs could be that it's the end of seeking. It's when there is no seeking. That's typically that could be one of the qualities. But I realize that even seeking is it as well.
You are wonderful. This is a fantastic group. I'm getting my money's worth, Michael. It's absolutely phenomenal.
I don't think I've received a donation from you.
I'm going to give it to you for the Kosi book, but if you're looking at where can you get people who are eager to be existentially proven that they don't exist, and what they say and what they think are equally faulty or missing the point?
Because there isn't a point.
That's the
There is
cue.
just this.
Quod erat demonstrandum, Peter. The comment about a point, about being a point and not a point is the sticking point.
Yeah, and it's again, that's a it's very fascinating to realize that, because I've been making points for a long time, and it's the source of every argument is to state a point and then to argue a point and to be heard or not heard and to be right,
What a bother. Yep, I know the story.
And since we mentioned the word donation, I'll put a plug in for Michael that all these beautiful webinars are, it's nice to give a donation to Michael. That's all,
Thanks, Alice.
not just for the book.
Thanks, guys. This is really a special, very special. I look forward to Wednesday evenings with you because I don't know of any other group quite like this one.
Yeah.
And it's also amazing, Michael, how it has evolved. And I haven't been here at the outset, but just in the time that I've been here, it's amazing how it has shifted. I have shifted in many ways. I came here quite feisty, trying to get a lot of things, and I've kind of gotten a little bit more laid back and quiet lately.
Something that's been kind of on my mind too is like there's no proof of anything. Like the proof is like what Peter was saying, it's just defending points, but defending beliefs with other beliefs. There's no end to proof unless you're going to mention everything. So even if it's like proving that you don't exist, and I'm sure probably several people here have done like the self-inquiry game, and it's like there's no end to that because you're not going to see who's looking for who. And if you come up with something, it's just more proof that then has to be backed up. It's like, well, who's aware of that? Well, then who's aware of that? And what about that sees that? And it's just a loop again. It's just stuck in concept and proof. And unless you're going to know everything, then there's never enough proof that's really going to say or prove to someone that there's no one.
Yeah. That's it. It's because the me is already limitation. It's already, Jim Newman calls it contracted energy. I don't care about the words. So call it whatever you like. But there's this feeling of limitation that is seeking freedom. But the only place here, everything is limited. So it's limitation searching for unlimitedness in limitation. So, because everything you get sooner or later, it never lasts. That happiness, that joy, that sense of peace. See, here there was just a total sense of giving up, of not knowing, of surrendering. I don't have a fucking clue how this game works. I'm sorry.
Michael, do you see that the karmic expression is still present, although the giving up isn't always?
That's just heard, Michael, that's just heard as a concept here. I'm sorry, but karmic.
Well, you're always giving it up. You're always going back
No.
to
No, there's nobody to give it up already. I'm sorry. There just isn't.
Okay, but I'm perceiving a sense that there is giving up, there's giving up, and there's giving up. And at some point, it's as though it's expected that you'll now be ensconced in the everythingness, whatever the hell that
Are
would
you-
be.
That's not what's being shared here at this meeting.
You're not sharing it, but the loop that goes on with, presume all of us, is that stated, unstated, resisted or not. That's perceived here. That's not the truth. It's the perception here.
As Tony would say, so that's what you're perceiving. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
There is also just this, which is here we are, or there's just this, which is these squares that have color and shapes, and sounds come out of the shapes. And there is traffic outside, and they're sitting. And there's probably lots of other stuff too, but the interesting thing about language and form, one of the interesting things is that form supports form. So then in this situation, if it's just this, like no me's, just this, if someone says, well, who is that happening to? Who are the squares and the traffic and the sitting happening to? There aren't words except to say to no one. It's happening to no one. I mean,
It's beautiful.
I've heard it said some places too that like that if the self or me, if you really knew what this was, you wouldn't want it because it's that what Maureen was saying. It's so simple and obviously already the case that to make it something is then it involves making a story about it. And it's all like it's just squares and sound and color and traffic. Like, what do you do with that? There's no room for you when there's just what's happening. If you're going to say it's happening to me and how is this affecting me and what do I get out of this, then you're already there in separation. You've created it. It's created itself. It's happening by itself, which that, I mean, that's unavoidable too. The getting lost in that. And then, but then it's always the case that it's sometimes it seems like it's there and then it's not noticed when it's gone, because to notice it, it has to be made into something then. Like, oh, there was no self for a second. That happened to me. Oh, wait a second. But if there's just the sound of traffic and there's being lost in that, then there's no one lost in it. And then if there's the noticing of no self, no one's lost in that either. And that seems to be what becomes more obvious, is that there's just never anyone lost in anything. And the arguing with concepts or trying to clarify what the carrot is that's being chased, like all of that is not happening. It's just imagined, explored, enticed, whatever. Unwantable.
Yeah, and Tim Kliss does talk about this. This isn't, he says it, this isn't what I wanted. No me wants this, because the me has whatever the image is that you have. That's what it wants. Whatever mana, heaven, bliss, whatever that is for you, that's what you want. That's what the me wants. But this message is saying something completely different. It's saying there's already just everything. And that is not what the me wants, because if there's everything, then we're special. How am I special if there's just fucking everything?
Could everything be special?
Of course.
To whom?
Well, if everything is special, then you're imagining who you are is special.
There's nobody that imagines anything.
Well, the everything is imagining. The everything is imagining you. Everything is imagining me as being special.
Yeah,
It's
that's
special.
sorry.
Special is just a label. Everything's a label. Everything's labels in a story. In the story, we label everything.
Everything that is labeling everything. There's no us, so there, everything is doing this labeling, and it's the everything that is, for whatever reason, separating off and feeling separate. So therefore, there can be nothing wrong. It's all
But does everything need labels?
if there are labels here, then apparently it does.
Who's it?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Who is it?
What, everything?
You said it needs labels. It needs everything.
If there are labels here, that is everything.
Well, wait, can we look?
Where
Don-
is the freaking
Don-
label,
label.
Don?
Don, let's look
Where
for the
is it?
label. Zoe, you have to stop doing that. You're taking the thoughts literally right out of my head. Don, let's look here for a label. It's a good question, right? Because we say, oh, that's just let's look for a concept. Let's look for a label. Let's look for these things that we so easily throw around and just assume that they have validity. Is there anything like that here now? Just here now?
Sure. I've got all kinds of labels. Now, here's the thing though. I'm saying if I have a label, that's everything having the label. That's all I'm trying to say. We're talking about labels. There must be labels because when there's a lot of talk about these labels that are, whether they're here or not here, whatever, it's still everything playing around with these labels.
Don, how about everything is expressing as labels, as this and as that? It's expressing, and that's where we started. It's not about the words. Labels, Christmas trees, donkeys.
Okay, so everything, based on that, everything is valid.
Yeah, we never said there is what's wrong or it's invalid. This conversation is fascinating because it always kind of goes into there's something wrong somewhere.
Right.
It's not. Everything is expressing as whatever appears.
Right. Right. I agree.
Don, I had a funny thought on that. It was just from the other day. It was like very childish, but I was on a plane and we were flying over like Montana or something. And I was just very childish thought came. I was just like looking at Montana. And I'm like, you know, it's so funny because if you're like a pretty young kid and you're learning about the states and you see that there's this big label on Montana, then you probably expect it to be there when you fly over Montana. But then you look and you're like, there's no label there. That's just contiguous with everything else. And so then that just got me thinking like, well, then there is not a real label. There's an imagination of a Montana. And then if you go there, people swear you're in Montana. You'll see a sign that says it, and people will tell you the history of Montana. And there's the Montana warehouse of goodies or whatever you want to visit. And it seems really real that you're in Montana. But from the plane, you look down at yourself and be like, they're nowhere. They're nowhere specific at all. They're in Montana and they're not. And then extrapolating that, it's like the boundary of our own skin, thinking like, oh, I'm in here. This is David. And that label, it's like, where does that exist? It's like, oh, it's on the screen right now. But again, that's like the little kid looking at Montana, you learn that, and it seems real because concepts can seem so real. Labels can feel and seem so real because they're just used second nature, you know? Seems to be, like you said, everything is labeling, but it's what they is so annoying to hear is just like it's real and unreal.
Yep.
It's both.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
and
David and
learning-
it's not.
As you say, David, learning is acquiring labels for things. That's learning.
Right, which of course isn't wrong. It's just what happens.
Exactly.
But then it's like it seems to be convincing that that's real when we learn that it's like it's also kind of taught and then forgotten that like this is abstraction, by the way. Like you're not going to fly over Montana and see Montana. You're just going to see Earth, the universe. You're going to see everything. And that's it. And then insert your label for utility,
Yeah.
but not real.
Or we can go back to the fact that this isn't wantable. Labels are interesting to me because I'm looking for what I want. The labels more tell me what's going on, give me the story, and they tell me how to get the story of how to get what I want. I need to know the label so I can get that, whatever it is. It's all in the story of what's going on. But if there's nothing wantable here, because it's already everything, how can you want? You have to want something that isn't here. And that's only in a story. And then the labels have a use for that story, to help me get. But that isn't what's here, as we're saying here, because there is nothing missing from here. And so there's nothing gettable or wantable. So all that other stuff is just the story of me. That's the ongoing, it can appear, does appear. Doesn't have anything to do with anything as far as I can see.
But it's a beautiful story because the everything is telling the story. So it is a beautiful story. The beautiful story of you, or the beautiful story of me, or the beautiful story of this meeting is beautiful, very beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it's everything. Yeah.
As Maureen was just saying, yeah. And it keeps going. And there's no escape from it, as people say sometimes.
Well, I'm sorry if you were here to see Nkosi looks like you're disappointed because Alice, did he contact you by chance?
No, well, I heard my phone dinging a few times. Maybe he did.
No worries.
Luckily, there's no one to miss him.
Well, I find it very helpful. I don't know if this is, I know everything is everything and all, I mean, but I find sometimes when I'll see somebody and when I make up a story, I can catch me making up the story, and then I realize that that is just my imagination. It's not really what's happening. It's hard to talk words in this meeting because, you know, who's the one that this and that, and but anyway, I find it really helpful to know that a lot of my pain comes from my imagination, and when I can see that, it's just kind of funny.
And if you want, you can notice that or say that it's not your imagination. It's imagination appearing, but it's not yours.
Right.
You don't have to
No
claim it.
Alice here to come and claim it. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. I'm gonna quick take a look at my phone.
Any last comments or questions before we
Yeah.
close out this evening?
Because I'd like to just say that it's been said at the beginning and lots that this is a unique meeting. So I do a lot, I go to a lot of meetings, and I'm not really certain what it is about this meeting. I so look forward to coming to it, but I think there's a lot of room here. It's not just somebody says something, then everybody agrees, or then everybody goes to that person and gets cleared out by them and cleaned, you know what I mean? Like healed by the person. There's something that allows everybody here, or I feel it over here, that allows all of us to come in with what we believe and what we don't believe, and have this conversation or whatever we're doing. But it's never about, you have to believe this way. You have to believe this way. I just really, really appreciate this group for that, however that got put together.
Thanks, Don. Yeah.
I also appreciate what you said, Don, and I think the closest to what you really appreciate that is not present here is when Michael Jeffrey says, this isn't what this meeting is about. That's about as much direction as he is insisting upon.
Yeah.
You mean it's about something?
Have nothing.
Yes.
And as colored squares go, it's being crushed here in this gathering.
Oh,
Thanks, everybody.
thank you so much
Michael,
to each
Dan.
and every one of you for coming.
Thanks,
We so
everybody.
love and appreciate all of you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Have a good week.
Hey.
Right.